Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to the finale of the British Masters. It's round 6, and we're back at Donington Park for a 90-minute finale to cap off what has been an exciting, a dramatic, and a tense season so far. But it's not over yet. We still have 90 minutes of racing here this evening, and a championship to be settled in both classes. My name is Ryan Gill. I have John Dalton alongside me once again since the first round of the season. And we have Ted Edwards behind the cameras here today for the finale as well. John, we come into it, final race of the season, 90 minutes special here. 6 points between our title contenders, and neither of them are at the top of the table in practice.
Yeah, certainly so, Ryan. It's going to be super interesting to see what this championship boils down to. Once you got Rachinov leading provisionally with 133 points, Daniel Austin's trailing behind on 127. So really not much separating these guys. They're very close on times in practice, as you can see down the left. And Nico Kuizma at the top there, setting some absolute blistering pace as we flick through to qualifying now, Ryan. So it's going to be super close. I think this one track position is going to be key as always at Donington. You do find it very hard to overtake. I was here in a race just at the weekend, GT3 and GT4 hosted by RCI, and it's a very interesting place to try and get around anyone. So 90 minutes could prove a little bit stale and follow the leader, and it could make for some desperate moves from our championship contenders if they do need to beat that traffic. But as always, Ryan, who is your money on for pole position today?
Oh, who's my money on? Well, it's got to come down to one of the title contenders, I would say. But in practice, neither of them looking particularly great. But of course, practice doesn't tell every story. We don't know what the fuel loads of all the drivers are. Of course, some of them do quali runs, some of them do the race runs, and difficult to tell. But we're looking at Nico Kuizma, who was the man that was at the top of the timings at the end of practice, and has got out second. And oh, is that a McLaren that's just gone off into the gravel trap out of turn 9? And I hope that they didn't end up in the barrier and that they can keep going. But Nico Kuizma, was the fastest man in practice, and he's looking to get a move on as well in qualifying. Doesn't exactly want to be sat behind the Aston Martin, but looks like he is going to leave some space at the moment. But it's going to be difficult. I think if you're going to pin down any two drivers, it's going to be between Nico Kuizma and potentially Andy Boardman. But I think that's not going to be ideal for Kuizma, trying to start a lap, trying to take a wide line into the corner, and that's to try and propel himself, with a bit more speed down the straight, John, and I think rather compromised the McLaren behind him.
Yeah, it's the only problem with qualifying. If you're not backing up behind your opponents, then you're going to run into situations like this where Nico wants to take the kind of much faster line where you go almost out to the kind of cut through for the national circuit, swing as wide as you can, nail the throttle and get a straight run to the line to carry that extra speed as you come across it to set your fastest lap. And obviously Nicole Fox there following Nico Kuizma thought maybe Nico was leaving the door open for her, and saw a chance and thought, you know what, I'm going to have some track position today. And unfortunately, the door did get slammed shut in her face. So hopefully they both avoided contact. Obviously, you don't want to be getting any kind of damage in qualifying, hampering the performance of your car, especially in a car as aero-sensitive as the McLaren, Ryan.
So Nico Kuizma then, after a bit of a leery start to the qualifying session, will look to try and get a benchmark lap down at this point. That's what most of these drivers are aiming for at this time. Just try and get a representative lap time down at the moment. And then once you've got that, try and push ever more. They have 15 minutes for qualifying here today. And, it's a bit more generous than what we usually give them around here, John. Usually these drivers, they're used to 10-minute qualifying sessions, but we did think with some of the smaller tracks that we had out here, they would get given 15 minutes just to have a little more time in case they got caught up with traffic. Nico Kuizma won't put a lap on the board, by the way, in his very first run. It will be Nico Kumpu instead that takes top honours on the very first set of laps that have gone round. But Ventsi Rakinov, the championship leader in the number 24, has immediately gone into the 26s on his very first lap.
Yeah, Reginov definitely a good contender in qualifying. Has stuck the McLaren on pole, I believe, a couple of times this season. But Ben Mullard answering back there, just 0.2 behind Reginov as he comes across the line. We've got some very big names in this championship. See George Kwiatkowski there up in 3rd position. He was here on Saturday with some kind of pre-Monday Masters testing maybe, although albeit in the Audi R8 as opposed to the McLaren. Very similar kind of platform setup, obviously engine in the middle of the car, rear wheel drive, so probably got a good feel for it. Learned, you know, quite a few braking points and apexes, and really took the 6 hours in his stride, sorry, the 3 hours in his stride from Saturday. So definitely a guy to watch. Kwiatkowski certainly not a force to be messed with in the silver class. Obviously these silver drivers being mixed in and amongst the pros is going to be a very good curveball for our championship. Obviously, if we've got our championship leaders fighting silver guys, whereas one of them's managed to streak away, it's going to throw a right spanner in the works. And obviously, with the 90 minutes here, it's going to be a big game of catch up to get it on and get moving to your opponent behind.
Now, this is Ethan Scott in the silver class, and this is a driver that comes into the final round of the season knowing that he can still win the silver championship. However, the problem that he has is that he has to beat Tom Shipston first. He has to finish in 1st place in silver class. He has to take pole position. He has to get the fastest lap. And he needs to hope that Tom Shipston doesn't come away with any more than 25 points this weekend. Or race weekend, rather. So, for Ethan Scott, it's very much back against the wall. For the end of the championship here, but anything is possible. 90-minute finale, John. You know, things can happen. There could be incidents at turn 1. Shipston could have drama later on in the race, but as it stands right now for Ethan Scott, that championship is going to run away from him in qualifying if he can't at least match the pace by the silver pole at the moment of Nicole Fox, who, by the way, is only half a second off the overall pole set by Nico Kuizma so far.
Yeah, certainly on that one, Ryan, he really does have to kind of get his head down and get really focused on the back of Tom Shipston's Bentley if he ends up behind him. If not, he needs to kind of block his mirror out of that Bentley and just focus on the road ahead. Obviously, like you say, Ryan, 90 minutes, absolutely anything can happen. Donington Park, a notoriously tricky first corner, very kind of bunched together, main straight's really wide, and then it kind of pincers in as you get round turn 1. So always chaos to be had, I say, especially on Saturday. Ended up a few cars tripping over each other, ended up taking avoiding action for the opening lap in the GT4 class at least. And yeah, it's going to be a very, very close one. But like I say, 90 minutes, absolutely anything can happen. So even if something does happen on turn 1, you've got a whole, 89 minutes essentially to bring it back. So get your mind reset, get yourself in some clean air, and really start pounding in those lap times. And speaking of pounding in those lap times, this man here, Ben Mullard, 0.288 off provisional pole of Nico Kuizma at the moment. Mullard again has been a force to be reckoned with this championship, has comfortably put himself in the top 5 on points, sitting at 93, not too far behind Nico Kuizma on 98. But of course we will run down the standings in between qualifying and the race. And this grid is looking super, super competitive, Ryan, as Daniel Austins, I've just noticed, has gone provisional pole now with a 126.3, and Nico Kuizma 0.092 off of pole, and Rachinov obviously half a second down, so he's really going to have to get a move on and try and get in a lap time worthy of at least the front row to keep this championship alive, Ryan.
Yeah, has to obviously keep the championship alive, but Ventsi Rakhonov at the moment, coming around the final corner up towards the timing line, has improved and up to 3rd place, so that puts them on the 2nd row of the grid. Austin's at the moment on provisional pole means that they'll be taking away those extra points for pole position that they will need going into this final. 6 points they've got to overturn over Ventsi Rakhonov. It will not be easy here this evening for the Aston Martin to do so. The McLaren is a very, very good car around here. But Daniel Austins, I did say the Aston Martin across the course of the season, it should be the best car across all of the tracks that we have here. But it just seems like at the moment, at Brands Hatch specifically, where I thought Daniel Austins would do much better than he did just seem to struggle. Having said that, still ended up on the podium in what was his worst race of the season. So it's not all bad, is it, John?
Yeah, certainly. So it's amazing how you can have, you know, the worst race of the season, as you say, Ryan, but still end up on the podium. It just proves how much of a dominant force Daniel Austins has been throughout the British Masters series, and certainly worthy of a top step on that podium a few times. Obviously, Alton Park, I seem to remember he stuck it on pole and literally drove away from the field with no contention. So Daniel Austins, with just under 6 minutes to go in this qualifying session, sits on our provisional pole, aiming probably to do the same as he did at Alton, get a really good start, drive away and block out the likes of Guizma, Rachinov and Mullard in his mirror, which isn't going to be an easy feat, especially with the time gaps between the drivers on their fastest laps. If these guys can keep this pace up, obviously consistently for the 90 minutes they have here at Donington Park today, it's going to be a super competitive field. You know, top 5 separated by less than half a second, as Rachinov here takes the very wide line. Almost looks like he was gonna, then tucked it right into the inside to get himself down to the line. So Delta not looking to improve here as he begins another lap. Still 5 minutes to go. He does only have to find 0.227 to take himself onto that front row. And a man we've not seen a lot of in this this broadcast so far, Jan Yao, one of our regulars here at RCI, in the number 48 Aston Martin, currently sits in P6, comes across the line and raises himself up into P5. Another man who, you know, you don't really want to fight with on a track. He can get, you know, very dicey. He's very aggressive and very pushy in the way he drives, but very fair as well. He always gives, you know, and just enough room to allow you side by side, but not enough room to make it easy for you. So another one to be watching, especially in the pro class. This man could really have an effect on the championship.
Yeah, and Yan Yeo sitting down in, what is it, 8th place in the championship right now. Best results of the season so far is a 7th place finish. That was at round 3 back at Donington Park. So for Yan Yeo, maybe Donington Park is, you know, just a circuit that gels with him a bit more, and you know, perhaps, you know, working with that circuit just a bit more at the moment, and the car working a bit better for him maybe than last time. It's always interesting when you come back to a circuit after having visited it earlier in the season, John. If you had a particularly good result at Donington Park earlier in the season, you'll be looking forward to coming back here. If you didn't, well, you'll either be dreading coming back here, or what you should be doing is trying to figure out what went wrong and how you can fix it this time around. You have a second chance at a circuit where a race maybe didn't go your way. Try and see if you can fix that.
Yeah, definitely, Ryan. It's all about kind of, you know, resetting yourself mentally, blocking out the previous round that happened at Donington Park, whether it was a good one, whether it was a bad one. You just really have to focus on what is happening now, and that is obviously 90 minutes of Donington Park, as we ride on board here with our very own RCI staff member, Les Stevenson, in a very mint green coloured McLaren. Again, another guy who has put up much of a fight in the silver class towards the back end. Seen him a few times on the broadcast, having his own little tussles with various people as he comes down to the old hairpin. Very fast section of the track, very good passing place. If you can get a good run through downhill section towards there, he races up the hill, braking on the left by the whiteboard, getting it pitched in nice and early. Bit of a late apex on this corner, normally gives you a good run across the corner, but you do want to be very mindful of those track limits on the outside. Very easy to pick up warnings, and I did as such in the 3-hour race at the weekend. I ended up picking up 3 on my opening stint. 3 of them, Ryan. And we had to race for, you know, 2 hours with 3 track warnings looming over us. So very surprised we made it with no penalty. Very easy to upset the car through the chicane. Want to be taking as little curb as you can, but as much as you dare get away with. And now down into the Melbourne hairpin. Very good passing place. If you catapult yourself through the chicane behind your opponent, does give you a very good run up the inside. It makes it super easy to get a move done, and finally down to the last corner. Les going a little bit wide there, maybe abandoning this lap, wanting to maximize the next lap, and he unfortunately pulls into the pits. Maybe a practice pit stop. Does creep up very early the pit board, so again another thing to look out for in the race, Ryan, is people picking up penalties for speeding.
Yeah, it's quite easy to pick up a speeding into the pits around here at Donington Park because of the rather sharp pit in. Once you come around the final corner, you have to commit immediately. And if you've got a car on your inside line, then, well, you're not going into the pit lane that lap. You're going to have to go again unless you back off massively. So it is a tight entrance here at Donington Park. It's a fairly dangerous one as well. And we could be seeing some stop-and-go penalties, perhaps, for a driver here tonight. We, of course, do still have the live stewarding that we've had for the entire season so far, and the team, well, the team weren't too happy to hear out tonight that they would be needed past the 60-minute mark, but, you know, they will do their job, and, of course, they are here just to make sure that if there are any incidents out on track, that they will be dealt with appropriately. And of course, the stewards have done a fantastic job all season long. Another man that, well, I wouldn't say he's done a fantastic job, but he's done a job that I didn't exactly recommend him to do. But Bart Matcher in the Connection Lost Racing McLaren 650S. Yes, that's correct. That's the old McLaren. He's coming around at the moment on a qualifying lap. He currently sits 6th place in the silver qualifying standings at the moment for the final round here. He should get another lap in if he wishes to do so. But he's actually going to pull into the pit lane. But this man right here, absolute champion out in the old McLaren. And he's not the only one, because we've seen Martin Lawrence out this season in the old Bentley. However, I do believe for the final round of the season, John, we're unfortunately not going to see the old Bentley this evening.
Yeah, unfortunately so. I was really looking forward to the battle of the old school when I saw Bart Matcher out the window. I was looking for Lawrence's Bentley as well, but alas, not to be found here. Drove a very hard race on Saturday in the GT4 Camaro, so maybe a little bit fed up with Donington Park, maybe taking a little bit of a break and not wanting to punish himself any more in the old school Bentley. The old school cars are notoriously tricky to drive with their dated TC, dated ABS, and very dated aero as well. They are not the easiest things to keep on track, and especially for 90 minutes. I think even 60 minutes for myself, Ryan, would be a struggle in one of those.
Yeah, I don't particularly envy anyone driving in some of the older cars around here, but 90 minutes for Bart Matcher tonight in that McLaren 650S. I think he'll be glad to see the back of it when we get to the end of this season. But here we go then, the qualifying session coming to an end. It's Daniel Austin's that has taken pole position here in the final round of the championship. 126.410 will be enough for the overall pole position here. And it looks like Kwiatkowski will cross the line in the silver class just to come to the end. He will move up to second in the silver qualifying, but it's Nicole Fox who will take pole position in the final round for the silver class as well. 8th overall for Nicole Fox. A fantastic result at Brands Hatch last week, and will be looking to tee off the end of the season with perhaps a win out here tonight. But before we get into all the racing action here tonight, it's important that we have a look at the championship standings and we see exactly where everyone stands. So here it is then. Ventsi Rakhimov leads the way with 133 points. Now, Daniel Austins has taken provisional pole here tonight. Those points don't immediately get added onto his tally because, of course, the points you walk away with depend on your maximum points for the round because the drop round kicks in. So Daniel Austins has 3 points at the moment that could be added to his tally. We will find out depending on where he finishes tonight. Meanwhile, a bit further back is Nico Kwiatkowski with 98 points and Ben Mullard 5 points behind that. Close between those two for third in the championship. Then it's Nico Kumpu on 73. He's got an 8-point gap to Andy Boardman on 65 and then 56 for Matthew Kingston-Lee. Jan Yeo and Stephen Van Kampen are 42 and 41 apiece, and they have Jordan Daly right behind them on 38 points. So a three-way battle at the moment for 8th place in the championship. And of course, not too far behind the likes of Jordan Daly is John Aracer, Martin Lawrence, and then Alexander Witzel, 34, 34, and 29 apiece for them. Martin Lawrence in the old Bentley, the 2016 model, not here tonight. Unfortunately, he will not score any further points. And then the silver battle, it is Tom Shipston in the Bentley Continental. This is the modern Bentley. 141 points, 37-point gap over Ethan Scott. Ethan Scott needed pole position, fastest lap, and a race win here tonight to have any chance of the championship in silver. He has not succeeded in his pole position, so the championship is already decided now in the silver class. Tom Shipston, at the end of qualifying for the finale, is declared the champion. He can go out there tonight and just enjoy himself. 92 points for third place, Laurie McLaughlin, and then 83 points for Vocha Rebecki. Nicole Fox is on pole for the final round of the season in the silver class. She sits on 73 points at the moment, hoping to improve on her tally for the season. George Kwiatkowski on 49, Alan Knight 44th, Thibaut Roskam on 39, and then Niels Yun on 35, and Daryl Sutcliffe only 3 points behind on 32. It is fairly tight towards the back end of the top 10 in silver. And then finishing out silver, Bart Matcher on 31 points and Les Stephenson on 25. Chris van der Linde, no points to his name so far this season, and all the other drivers that you saw with the dash on the pro and now the silver standings as well are drivers no longer competing in the championship. So that either means that they've signed out of the season or they were disqualified. I do not believe we've had any drivers disqualified though, so it's just championship sign-outs. And we do have a 22-car grid for the finale here tonight, John. And, well, it's all decided in the silver class, so everyone in the silver class is just competing for pride in the final round of the season. But up in pro, it's business as usual. It's Austin's versus Rakhimov. Who do you have down, not as your winner for tonight, John, but as your pro champion of the British Masters?
It's a very tricky one to call at the moment. Man on the left of your screen, Daniel Austins, has proved time and time again that, you know, you can sit it on pole and just romp away from everybody. Forget all the dramas behind, everybody that's banging doors and spinning each other out. You can kind of ignore that and just really get the hammer down and avoid the mess that gets caused. But this man next to him, equally Nico Kuisma, can be very, very quick and could be a spanner in the works between Austins and Rakhimov. Obviously, if Rakhimov gets stuck behind Kuisma, he's not going to be able to fire up the inside of Austins at turn one. So be very, very careful of Kuisma. And Ben Mullard, again, a driver that has proved time and time again he can mix with the top three. So there's some very, very fast cars at the front. McLaren looking very strong indeed in qualifying. So yeah, this is so hard to call, Ryan. I'm going to put my money on Austins. I'm going to say he's gonna take it. I'm going to curveball it. I'm going to say a British driver is going to win the British Masters. How's about that?
Well, I think, you know, going with Austins, you know, I mean, there is no brave decision. There is no, you know, out there decision. Either of these two drivers could win it here tonight, and it's a situation where you feel like both drivers would equally deserve to walk away with the championship here tonight, but only one of them can walk away with it. I tell you what, if you're going to back Austins, I'm going to back Rakhimov to go out there and win tonight. So we've both got different picks. I think Rakhimov, he's got the edge. He's got those extra few points in hand, 6 points in hand over Daniel Austins, and I think tonight he will just be able to edge it. We saw a dominating performance from him at Brands Hatch, and he's on the front row of the grid. Oh, no, he's not on the front row of the grid. Sorry, he's on third row at the moment. He'll have to get some work done, but we saw Austin struggle at Brands Hatch. He did manage to claw it back towards the end of the race, had some good pace in the second half, but I think here tonight it might just be a stretch too far. And also, the last time we were here at Donington Park, Venturi Rakhimov walked away with the win, so I'm going to put my money on that this is a track that suits the championship leader.
Yeah, certainly. If he's won here once before, then obviously he can win maybe once again, make it 2 of 2 in the season at Donington Park, as we see some very fancy shots coming from our broadcaster tonight, Ted Edwards.
Don't you love the drone cams?
Gotta love the drone cams. Absolutely love them. Very fancy work from Ted. So, you know, kudos to Ted Edwards and all the staff here at RCI that obviously help run every single event that we run, including the stewards over in the box next to me. I'm expecting a few pieces of paper coming from turn 1 today. Donington has always been a tricky circuit to start. Almost want to shove a microphone in through the door there of Jordan Daly and say, quick word, Jordan.
I was going to say, get a little inside look to Jordan Daly, and this is an
Yeah.
inside look to Daniel Austin starting on pole position for the final round of the season as well. There you go, that is the 22-car grid as they get ready to pull away for their formation lap. So your qualifying order and starting order for the race confirmed then. Daniel Austin's on pole position alongside Nico Kuizma, second on the grid. The championship leader, Ventsi Rakinov, third on the second row, sharing it with Ben Mullard. Jan Yeo and Nico Kumpu on the third row of the grid. Jordan Daly on the fourth row. Nicole Fox is the first of the silvers that we have on the fourth row of the grid. She's followed by Stephen Van Kampen and Andy Boardman, who round out the top 10. Matthew Kingston Lee is in 11th, and he has George Kikowski, the second of the silver drivers, alongside him. John Aracer in 13th, with Laurie McLaughlin down in 14th. The champion in silver, 15th on the grid tonight. He won't be too bothered about that. Thibault Roskam shares the row with him. Justin van der Linden, the back end of the pros, in 17th, with Bart Matcher and the old 650S alongside him. Ethan Scott, who will be now competing for second place in the championship, has Darryl Sutcliffe alongside him, and the back row of the grid is Les Stevenson and Alan Knight, or it would be Alan Knight, but I have just noticed, John Dalton, that 970 is back in the pit lane.
Yeah, not a very good move there from Alan Knight. Maybe time got away from him, maybe watching too many of our fancy drone shots here at RCI TV to click the drive button, and has unfortunately been teleported to the pit lane, or possibly doing it out of choice so he can avoid the turn 1 chaos that I'm inevitably going to predict. The last 3 events I think I've raced here at Donington, turn 1 has always been a mess, so I don't think tonight is going to be any different, but they could prove me wrong. I've been proved wrong many a time before, and obviously hopefully we can have a clean start tonight so we can really get this championship finale settled between Rashinov and Austins as they round through the formation lap, up through the old hairpin and under what would have been Starkey's Bridge had it not been removed. A little bit of track scenery gone from the yesteryears at Donington. Obviously the Dunlop Bridge on Starkey Straight is a very famous landmark that is unfortunately no longer with us. You'll see a few bits of track scenery such as the yellow cones go flying, I feel, on the opening lap. You're going to see the tyre bale in the chicane definitely making a swift exit to stage left. 100%.
The tyre bale's going to be gone.
I'll be amazed if somebody doesn't hit it on the formation lap deliberately at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very, very tricky corner to judge. Obviously, once the tyre bale goes, it's very tricky to judge the track limits. Normally, you tip it in, aim for the bale, and when the bale's not there, it's like, oh, where's the limit? And then all of a sudden, you're struck with a track limits warning. So again, something the drivers are going to have to be very wary of tonight. Very easy to pick up track limit warnings here, as I'm sure you know, Ryan, the same as me.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of scenery around here, you were talking about Starkey's Bridge earlier. Does anyone remember the old Dunlop Bridge that they used to have here at Donington Park on the back straight heading towards the chicane? That got removed quite a while ago, if I'm remembering correctly, but there did used to be a bridge there. I think it's been replaced by a tunnel now, probably a bit more convenient.
I believe it was when F1 was rumoured to make an appearance at Donington. They made it a lot safer, in quotation marks, for Formula 1 cars. So
as much
I believe,
safer as you can make Donington Park.
Yeah, I know, it's a very, very lethal circuit as we round towards the final corner here, Ryan, of Goddard's turn 11. Daniel Austins on the outside, Nico Kuizma on the inside, and the man behind in the white and red McLaren is Rashinov, the guy you want to be watching alongside Daniel Austins as we head towards the gantry, waiting for the green flag to drop. And here it goes. We've got a drive-through for Daniel Austins straight away off the line, but we'll ignore that as we go down to turn 1. Daniel Austins on the inside, Kuizma on the outside, tucks in. Rashinov slips up the inside, I'm seeing out of the window, and heading down through the corner curves of turn 3 towards turn 4, which is the old hairpin here. Rashinov has Daniel Austins firmly in his firing line, and with the drive-through pending over Austins, Rashinov isn't really going to be trying much on this opening lap, Ryan.
Absolute drama for Austins at the moment, chasing a championship, but Rakinov doing exactly what they needed to. You can see Jordan Daly in the background going well, elbows out to try and make up some places as well, up to 4th place at the moment. for Jordan Daly, who's had a very, very good showing in a couple of races this season. Hasn't quite had the consistency, but getting elbows out early as well. But like you said, Rakhimov will be under much less pressure now, having seen that drive-through penalty come out for his championship contender at the start. But he has to be careful. He can't make any risky moves now. He can't get too complacent, or he might get swamped from behind. But meanwhile, looking at Daniel Austin's, though, drive-through penalty on the start. He'll have to serve that at some point, and he'll be glad that he's got it in this race, John, because he's got a whole 90 minutes to make up for it.
Yeah, he's got plenty of time to make up for it, and these guys are fighting on the opening lap like they've only got 10 minutes of the race left. We see Daly with elbows out on that lap. We saw him make a mistake at the S's turn 9, and it detrimented his run down into the Melbourne hairpin of 10, and he got absolutely mugged by everybody behind him. Tried to get his elbows out and do the switch back, and as he went to switch back, Andy Boardman's McLaren was there as well, and Daly just getting hustled out of positions left, right and centre here, Ryan. It's been a fantastic start from Daly, but he's just going backwards at the moment, and that Nico Koizma has been worked down the order as well. He's down in P10 with Daly firing the McLaren right up behind the diffuser of Daly's Bentley, and Daly almost being a cork in the bottle at this stage. He's kind of released a few of the cars that were behind him, but now he's getting absolutely swamped by everybody else. This is crazy.
Seeing what's happened to Austin, seeing what happened to Koizma, it's not a good day to start on the front row at Donington Park, is it? And, well, all drama around. I think it has been a fairly, well, a bit of a quieter start than what we were probably expecting here at Donington Park in terms of incidents, although it hasn't been a good start for the likes of Nicole Fox, though. She started on pole position in the silver class. Now she's all the way down in 19th overall. George Kakowski leads the way in the silver class. So, of course, the 314 has come into strife. She'll be trying to do the same as Daniel Austin's and try and recover as much as she can over the next, well, is it 87 minutes that we have remaining? You saw Daniel Austin serve that drive-through penalty immediately at the start. And one of the problems he'll have now is that he's 4 seconds off the back of the pack, John. He's going to catch them fairly quickly, you'd imagine, and he's going to have a lot of work to get through all these silver drivers that, well, you know, quite frankly, they have no incentive to get out of the way for him.
Yeah, certainly so. Like, you know, with Daniel Austin's all the way at the back, he's going to really have to fight his way through these silver guys, and obviously these silver guys at the moment are all locked together mainly, with only 3 being out of sync up the road, with Kwiatkowski in 6th, McLaughlin and Shipston in 10th and 11th overall. So you're going to have some guys getting really dicey with each other to try and gain those positions for the silver class. But this man here, Tom Shipston, all he's got to do really is just have a clean race and, you know, not put himself out of contention so much. Really big lead in the championship for silver, so I think this guy could be maybe one of the drivers that we might look at pushing into pro. He has been really sticking it to the pro guys. As we flick here to a race replay, this is Nicole Fox and Daryl Sutcliffe, I believe, getting into the side of Ethan Scott. That's not what you want to be doing. I believe Nicole Fox possibly caught up with Stephen Van Kampen in the incident on the opening lap where, you know, Daly got absolutely mugged coming down into the Melbourne hairpin, and it kind of, you know, made that concertina effect, and Nicole Fox would have been in about the right region to be caught up in that. So not a very good start, like you say, from Nicole Fox. As we flick to another replay run here, we have Stephen Van Kampen. This is it with Daly on the outside. Van Kampen fires up the inside, clatters Koizma. Fox gets stopped by Van Kampen, and she literally can't go anywhere. She can't get past Van Kampen because he's parked broadside in the middle of the road. And this man here, Daniel Austin's, you see down in P20 with that purple number next to his name. He is on a real charge here. He's already made up his first position on Stephen Van Kampen, and he's going to be looking to take a lot more away, with the next car in line being Nicole Fox. But this man here, Daly, on P7, just on the back of George Kwiatkowski here. Going to be very tricky for Daly to pass. He was sat in the chat earlier, Ryan, talking about how the Bentley is a bit of a pig round here, and certainly the traction control system being really harsh, almost like a machine gun in the last 2 corners, trying to put all the torque and grunt down that that car does produce. But, you know, the McLaren's looking like a super strong platform, along with the Aston Martins here today. Bentley's not being in the mix so much, but again, time will tell. We've still got a long way to go yet, as we look to another replay here of Jordan Daly having to slow up, I believe, for Kwiatkowski, and Koizma just ran into the back of him, nowhere else to go on that one.
Yeah, some of those incidents. Oh, well, there's not much you could do about it. And this is Jordan Daly getting past Kwiatkowski. Kwiatkowski right on the outside of the corner coming out of the Melbourne loop and on the grass as well. Not entirely sure. But Kwiatkowski had to fight that one as hard as he was. You're in different classes, boys. Keep it tidy. But that is Jordan Daly up into 6th place. And my word, I mean, it's final round of the season. It makes sense that quite a few of the drivers, John, you know, they're a bit more elbows out. There's, you know, final points on the line out here. But it looks like everyone's decided that, no, this is the last 10 minutes of the race, despite the fact that we do have 83 minutes to go. And we're all going to battle for it right here, right now. A man that has made up a boatload of places, though, on the start. Jan Yale up into 2nd place. I believe he started 5th. So, you know, good places gained on the start. Just kept himself out of trouble. Isn't challenging Rakhimov at the moment, but honestly, isn't too interested. He hasn't had a podium all season. He's only just grazed the top 5 once this season. He'll be looking forward to just keeping where he is.
Yeah, he's certainly a very good driver, as we saw on Saturday. Really pedalled the Ginetta for 3 hours solo around Donington, so kudos to him as he looks towards his mirror. He's going to see the front end of Nico Kumpu's Aston Martin buried in the rear diffuser of his very own Aston Martin indeed. Very good platform around here, the V8 Vantage. Seems to be getting on quite well with a lot of drivers. You know, they've really shone here as opposed to a few of the previous rounds that myself and Jesse casted, where the Aston wasn't always towards the front. It was just a McLaren dominance at certain tracks. And leave looking towards the chat, we do have questions from I believe a mini ration of possibly of Alex, who has asked about overtaking around here, Ryan. And it is notoriously tricky to try and find a way around somebody at Donington Park. It's one of those like very old school circuits, very similar to Alton Park, where sometimes you do get in that kind of like that train battle essentially, where it just becomes not stale but very, very tricky to find an opening on your opponent when you're all in very similarly matched cars.
It is tricky, but as Sebrunia was saying in the chat as well, there are alternative lines that work around this circuit into certain corners, and this is very much a circuit that when you're in the flow, when you're in the rhythm, and you're really, really gelling with the car and the circuit, you can make incredible moves, not just around the inside, but on the outside of corners here at Donington Park. It is tricky, and Daryl Sutcliffe just getting caught out on the exit of the corner. Manages to save it. We've seen plenty of drivers over the past year that Donington Park has been out in ACC end up in the barrier with incidents like those, but just seem to get away with it this time. We're going to have a look on board from his perspective at the moment. He was chasing down Bart Matcher. You could tell the 650S from a very distinct back end that it has there. And then you see Daryl Sutcliffe here just coming out, loses a bit on the exit, but gets on the brakes, gets the car stopped, turns it back towards the circuit, and does not end up in the barrier. And very, very nicely done. Loses a place to Daniel Austin at the end there, but I think what he'll be more happy about is just the fact that his car is still in one piece.
Yeah, it's super, super easy to lose the back end of any car on that corner. Saturday, I had a similar incident, let an M6 through on the inside, ran over the AstroTurf, dipped the wheel, and as I dipped the wheel, the car was going sideways and came out kind of broadside onto an M6. So even the most experienced drivers can easily lose it there. As we flick back to a replay involving John Racer down at the old hairpin, gets rammed from behind by an Aston Martin, not expecting the McLaren maybe to brake that hard. But yeah, that was Justin van der Linden here we see in P11, just behind Les Stevenson. Les Stevenson has made quite a few gains as well on the opening 10 minutes of this lap, or this race, sorry.
21, and he's
yeah, indeed. 10 places gained from our very own RCI Les Stevenson, so hopefully we can keep an eye on him this race, and hopefully we see a few more gains coming up from him. Driver that's not always been, you know, towards this end of the grid, so it's going to be very interesting to see him coming under fire from, you know, the likes of Daniel Austin's, got Nico Kuzma and P19 at the back, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this little train behind him forms, and see what happens to dear old Les.
And sometimes you just need one good result, don't you, to kickstart a chain of good results going into another championship. Of course, this is the final round, but if Les Stevenson can get a great result here tonight, that might just kick him on for the rest of, you know, the next season that we have coming up here on Mondays, of which we will have a bit more information about. And oh, is that Daniel Austin's in the background? I think it is. And all that's
believe so, yeah.
Daryl Sutcliffe and Bart Matcher getting all caught up as well. And yeah, it was Daniel Austin's. Getting involved, not involved in an incident per se, but losing it coming out of the chicane, and that's lost him even more time. He has the fastest lap of the race, he has the qualifying bonus, but he's currently last of the pro cars, John, and by that standard, that means that he's not really going to be walking away with many points this weekend.
Yeah, that's it. You know, it's all very well having the fastest lap, but can you do that fastest lap consistently time and time again? So if you start making mistakes, okay, you're gaining a second a lap, every other lap maybe. Let's say then you make every 5-10 laps you make a mistake and you lose 5 to 6 seconds per mistake. You're just not really going to equalize anything out of it. You need to be, you know, fast but consistent. And speaking of fast, here we see Nico Kuzma nearly running into the back of Bart Matcher's 650S, and that allows Daniel Austins to fire it up the inside into the Melbourne hairpin. 3 wide here. This is the like alternative lines you were talking about, Ryan, earlier on with Seb, and Nico Kuzma maybe trying to do the switchback on Bart Matcher, but Bart Matcher shutting the door, obviously, with Daniel Austins involved in the mix now. Makes it super tricky to get 3 cars around that corner, but Daniel Austins has come out the man on top, and he's got a big bunch of clean air there to Stephen Van Kampen ahead, who he made light work of before his spin out of the S's. So hopefully Daniel Austins can do that again. But like you say, going back to the Les Stevenson point before we have a race replay here of what just happened. Absolutely fantastic driving from these 3 guys. A little bit of a bump there from Bart Matcher being wrestled out a little bit by Daniel Austins. Wasn't maybe expecting Nico Kuzma's golden McLaren to be on the outside there, but hey, it was there. Nico tried it and he tried to make it stick, but unfortunately not this time. But going back to your point about the, you know, that one good result can really elevate you. Racing is such a mental, you know, a mental thing. If you have a string of bad races, you just keep going into the next one thinking, oh, you know, this one's going to be terrible and oh, this is going to happen again. But as soon as you get a good result, you think, right, I know I can do this. I'm going to basically try and copy and paste what I did at Donington as I move on to, say, Watkins Glen, new track in ACC plug. But, you know, it's going to be one of those things that you just have to keep building, like, momentum in yourself. Yeah. You have to keep having, like, one good result, try and turn it into another, into another, and into another. And if you have a bad result, you just have to kind of push it to one side in your head and just think, you know what? It happens. So be it. Like, I've done it. It's out of my control. It's happened. Let's just move on and focus on the next round. And as we look to the front here, Matthew Kingston-Lee in the 555 car, one of our regulars here at RCI, with Tom Shipston bearing down on him, finds himself in a bit of a silver sandwich here. George Kwiatkowski's McLaren ahead of him, and Tom Shipston behind. Shipston doesn't really have to do a lot this round. He just has to kind of keep it very clean and very together and just kind of meander along, so he can almost just use Matthew Kingston-Lee as just a reference to maybe be a rear gunner from anybody attacking him. But, you know, we've got silver drivers behind him. The next pro driver in line is Justin van der Linden in the 612 Aston, but he's got at least 3 silver cars and a bunch of time to make up before he even hits the back of Matthew Kingston-Lee.
Yeah, Tom Shipston, though, up into second place. A very good progress for him, and this is a lap 2 replay with Andy Boardman and Jordan Daly. Ooh, to turn 1, and Jordan Daly just getting onto the outside of the corner there. They have ended up with Jordan Daly back in front of Andy Boardman. That Bentley has shown incredible pace here today for Jordan Daly, hasn't it? Has an incredible start, then got caught up in an incident, had to lose some places, now back up into 5th place. He's really showing the potential of that car around this circuit here today, but he's got a big gap between himself and Mullard now. 6.9 seconds is what he's going to have to make up. The battle for second place, though, is fairly interesting because Jan Yeo's only got about 0.8 of a second between himself and Nico Kumpu. And then Ben Mullard is only about half a second behind as well. So these 3 keeping it all very close together at the moment. Rakhmonov has disappeared down the road, but interesting development here, though. Both Rakhmonov and Austins now have the fastest laps of the race. So whilst Rakhmonov is aware that Daniel Austins is well down the order and that things are going to be difficult for him, Rakhmonov isn't exactly hanging around. He is still pushing.
Yeah, certainly so, Ryan. Is that a timing bug, or is that they
No, no,
both have
they
the exact
have
same
the
time?
same lap time.
That's
It will
absolutely
go to
insane.
Daniel Austin's because he set it first. However, as it stands at the moment, both the title contenders have done the same fastest lap.
It's absolutely insane, Ryan. It just proves how good the ACC bot can be sometimes. You know, you've got two guys in two very different platforms setting the exact same time, and they're both in very different scenarios as well. Daniel Austin's is fighting back through traffic, and you know, Reshinov is just out front as we see Bart Matcher there with a heavy hit into the wall on the inside coming out of the last turn. Not sure what happened there. Maybe a little bump possibly from Nico Kuzma, but he does find himself in the pit lane. Not sure if he has retired that car or whether we will see a few damage repairs. We'll have to keep our nose peered out of the comms box here, Ryan, to see what happens to the 650S. Would be a shame to lose one of the only old school cars in the race today, and like we say, we do have 90 minutes here, so plenty of time still for Bart Matcher to make up, as side by side with Nico Kuzma into the hairpin. Kuzma with a little bit of elbows out racing, and it gives obviously Matcher the inside to the last turn, and then possibly banging doors on the exit at the last turn caused Matcher maybe to turn into the pit wall with a heavy lick. Going to be a lot of damage on that car. As we look forward here to Ethan Scott coming under fire from behind from Roscam, who is also coming under fire from John O'Racer. So we're going to see a bit of a Silver Pro battle here. We're going to see how the pro contender of John O'Racer handles these Silver guys, whether he simply drives around them like they're not even on the circuit, or whether, you know, Roscam puts up a fight. Roscam is a very good driver, you know, another regular of RCI Mondays. We've seen time and time again sticking it to the pro guys. So although they're in silver, I wouldn't discount these guys yet, Ryan.
No, definitely not. The silver drivers, kind of like we've been talking about. That's the first penalty that's come out of the day. Stephen Van Kampen's been given a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. So the stewards, who have taken a while to get through the early phase of the race, are now starting to apply some penalties. But as you were saying, the silver drivers out here, they're no joke. They have plenty of pace. I mean, they managed to qualify within the top 40, I believe it was, that came through and up into the series. So, of course, plenty of pace from these drivers around, you know, the British circuit. I believe Donington Park was also the pre-qualifying track for the series as well. So, you know, plenty of these guys had a lot of laps around this circuit, but no, Thibaut Roscam, definitely a familiar name that we have around here. I have seen that Laurie McLaughlin has got past Les Stevenson, so he's dropped down into 4th place as it stands. You can just see his green McLaren there as we watch Ethan Scott being hounded by the 96 though, as Thibaut Roscam, and Daniel Austin's just appearing in the background there now. He's got John O'Racer in front of him. He's going to be his next target for a pro position, and then he's got a train of 5 silver drivers to get to before he gets to his next pro target of Matthew Kingston Lee in the 555.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting next kind of, you know, half hour or so for Daniel Austin, depending how much light work he makes of these guys. Obviously, John O'Racer is, you know, a very regular name here at RCI. He's not going to give it up easily. As we flick back to a replay here of Jordan Daly and George Kiakowski trying the Kevin Estra around the outside, but unfortunately not being able to get a good drive out of the hairpin, and Daly's Bentley just getting the drag on him down into the last turn. Daly has found himself in a lot of action today, indeed, and a lot of, you know, doors, like elbows out racing. So the Bentley's probably not going to be in the best shape bodywork wise, but Jordan Daly still up in P5, so kudos to him. As we see here, Nico Kumbu chasing the back still of Jan Yao, not yet found a way past the 48 Aston. So did say in qualifying, you know, Yao is one of those drivers that you don't want to discount out of this race. Don't always find him in the top section, but when you do, he certainly knows how to hold his own, Ryan, in a field of big name pro drivers. As we flick to another race replay here of Daniel Austin's making light work of John O'Racer, nearly touching on the exit of the hairpin, coming down into the last turn. The O'Racer then gets the inside, so we flick back here and we see Daniel Austin's is ahead of John O'Racer there, so found himself in another little pocket of clean air before he catches the back of Roscam. But obviously Roscam is trying to attack Ethan Scott, so Again, that's going to be a very tricky train for Austin to get past, as we see the move concluded here. Down into turn 1, just about enough room for a V8 advantage. A little bit of rubbing there, but they do say rubbing is racing, and John Aracer wasting no time tucking into the slipstream of Daniel Austin, but he now finds himself under fire from Justin van der Linden in the 612 V8 advantage as well. So finds himself in a bit of a Aston Martin sandwich here, as Les Stevenson has Ethan Scott around the outside into the final turn, and is Roscam going to try and find a way through as we ride on board the splitter cam of the V8 advantage down into turn 1. Les Stevenson on the outside, Ethan Scott on the inside there, and move sealed up on that one. Turn 1 sealed it for Ethan Scott there. We look back from Roscam's car again, a bit of a camera car here we have in the field, as Daniel Austin's getting ever closer in the old hairpin. Very tight line there from Austin, using all of the inside curve, trying to maximize the run up the hill towards the top turn 8 before he looks towards the inside again. But Roscam isn't going to make it easy. And Ryan, of course, if anybody wants to sign up for any of these events, you can do so over at our website of racerci.com. Plenty of action going on this week. We obviously have the final round of British Masters wrapping up. We have the opening Wednesday's Team Championship. I believe pre-qualifying is still open until tomorrow on that one, as this train gets ever tighter with Daniel Austin chasing down the back. Tries the outside, tries the inside into the Melbourne hairpin. And Thursday's championship hits round 4. Stevenson comes under fire from Roscam's Aston Martin. Les having an absolutely wonderful race, and Roscam there very respectfully waiting for Les to go back past. Knows he's done wrong, because he knows the stewards will be watching that, so wants to not receive any penalties, and wants to try and sway the stewards back in his favor. These guys maybe just getting a bit too late on the brakes and just not drawing up the car in time for the hairpin.
I wonder with Roscam though, you saw Austin's on the inside line. I wonder if Roscam tried to go a bit wider because of Austin's on the inside and just misjudged it as to where Les Stevenson was, and there was a bit of contact. We'll have to see what the stewards think of it, but yeah, very, very good to see from Roscam to let Stevenson back through. And this is Tom Shipston, and he's chasing down Matthew Kingston-Lee at the moment. Now, Tom Shipston doesn't really need to do much. In fact, he doesn't even need to finish today's race because he's already crowned champion. But you know what? Pride and all that. Racing for every point you can. And, well, second place at the moment. I think he'd rather fancy another win this season.
Yeah, Tom Shipston proved time and time again he can, really put the car in first position. So all he's got to really do is clear Matthew Kingston-Lee, and then he's onto the back of Kwiatkowski's McLaren. So, Shipston still could be eyeing up a win, could be playing the long game here with an hour 6 still to go on the clock. Still plenty of time to get a move on, even if running a different strategy to Kingston-Lee. If Kingston-Lee pits before him, he's going to have that clean air to then catch back up to Kwiatkowski. But Kwiatkowski putting in some really good pace here today. Not really a driver we've seen towards the front of the silver field, normally kind of mixing it in the midfield, but kudos to him. The McLaren seems to be really working around here. Maybe the practice in the Audi on Saturday really did him well. But going back to the point of what we have on at RCI before we were rudely interrupted by some spicy scenes on stream. Wednesday kicks off with a new team championship. Pre-qualifying is open, I believe, until tomorrow. So if you do want to build a two-car team, or a two-man team in that, get yourself pre-qualified on the server.
Can even be a three-man team, but only two may race per round, so you can have a third man in there as a backup. And this is Les Stevenson in the pit lane, so we'll hope that that's a mandatory stop that he's trying to fulfill right there.
Fingers crossed, maybe fixing a few of that damage that you picked up from the Roscam incident, and also clearing, like you say, the mandatory stop at the same time. An hour 5, you're probably just about in the fuel window to maybe make it to the end on the same set of tyres, but obviously towards the end the tyres aren't going to be their freshest here at Donington. Very tricky circuit for tyre wear, some really high-speed corners. Obviously, old hairpin puts a lot of load on the tyres as he comes out in front of Chan Yao there. So going to have a lot of blue flags waving his direction. Of course, no obligation to move over like in Formula 1. He can hold his line, and it is up to the faster cars to find their way around. Obviously, Chan Yao may find himself under fire from Nico Kumpu if Les does get in the way at all. we head back towards the field here of Alan Knight, the driver that started from the pit lane, finds himself up into P16, so having quite a clean comeback drive. Alan Knight had some really bad luck this season, having a few accidents in a few of the previous rounds, so great to see him finally kind of getting a bit of luck come his way as he slots onto the back of Nicole Fox. Not two drivers I thought would be fighting in this race, Ryan, but so be it. This proves the variety here at RCI that we do have up and down the grids. Thursday's championship rolls on to round 4 at Silverstone. Obviously, if you want to check into RCI TV, you can do. We will be streaming every event as always, top split with live stewarding. And this weekend, Ryan, is a double header. We've got World Tour qualifying, round 6, final round at Zolder, as we see Ethan Scott and Nicole Fox there, sorry, going side by side up into turn 9, and Ethan Scott preceding the place to Nicole Fox. But now this turns into a 3-way battle between 3 McLarens, so going to see who comes out on top. Hopefully Alan Knight can really make it work behind Ethan Scott. Very late on the brakes from Alan Knight, running into the back of Ethan Scott's McLaren. Don't want to be doing that anytime soon. We've seen a lot of contact this race, so hopefully these guys can keep it clean into the Melbourne hairpin. And of course on Saturday as well, we do host Night Owl, which is around 6 at Misano, which is again the final round of the season. So 2 championships wrapping up this week, 1 new championship starting, so to play for at RCI. If you do want to sign up for any of the events, head over to racerci.com and get your name down. So we flick towards the front here, Ryan, with Nico Kumpu again.
Yep, so Nico Kumpu chasing on the back of Yan Yo, and well, at the moment kind of just sitting in that half a second gap that he has been for the last few laps, kind of just waiting for an opportunity. You've seen Les Stevenson has got out the way and let these guys pass. Obviously doesn't want to interfere too much with the battle going on for the podium positions. Rakinov, it's kind of similar to what he was experiencing out at Brands Hatch. Kind of just out on his own at the moment, and doing a pretty good job at this point and making it ever more difficult for Daniel Austins to come back at him and try and win this championship. And well, coming at Yan Yo is Nico Kumpu, and putting up a very, very good defence is the number 48, and this is bringing Ben Mullard ever more into the fray to make it a 3-way battle. And you can see Jordan Daly just there in the background. He hasn't made too many inroads to the top 3 battle at the moment, but if these 2 start, or 3 rather, start getting messy with each other, they start, you know, pushing each other wide, trying to take every line that they can, take pieces out of each other if needs be, then Jordan Daly could find himself on the back of them sooner rather than later. And well, you'd have to say at the moment Yan Yo has the advantage. Nico Kumpu still doing the chasing, but Ben Mullard sitting in that ever 3rd position of the battle like this that you really do want to be in, don't you, John Dalton? You always want to be the guy at the back who's got the most to gain and the least to lose.
Yeah, certainly so. You always want to be that guy that's, you know, looking at the back of someone else's car rather than looking in your own mirror, trying to predict what the other guy behind it is going to do. Obviously, like you say, Ben Mullard with everything to gain here at the moment, currently resides himself in P4 in the championship on 93 points, with his closest rival being Nico Kuizma, who obviously we do not find anywhere near the top 10. He's just inside, the top 20, residing down in P20 on the scoreboard there. As you've seen, the number 12, the very last pro car that we have down the order. And speaking of pro cars, I've just had a look. Daniel Austins has made light work of those silver drivers that we said that he might get stuck behind, Ryan. He's just absolutely blitzed them like they've not even been there.
Yeah, Daniel Austin's getting the move on, isn't he? And I can tell you, it would have taken me a lot longer to get through those silver cars because I wouldn't have got through them at all. And Daniel Austin's up into 11th now. It has been a great comeback in half an hour for him. From the back of the grid, he's made up half the field already. And, well, now just 1.7 seconds off of the next target in the silver class that he needs to get through. Matthew Kingston Lee, of course, in 8th place is his next target for points in pro. But it's going to get ever more difficult with every position he gains, because not only is there a bigger gap between all of the drivers at the top are just faster and faster and faster than everyone he's got through so far. That's what makes these comeback drives so special and so incredible, is that you have to basically get through everyone from the top to the bottom. And for Daniel Austin's right now, pushing like mad, but we'll have to see when pit stops become into account with this car, because he didn't decide to pit early and maybe try and find himself in some clean air. You know, has decided to try and just get through as he can, but maybe at this point though, John, if he gets up to, you know, where Kingston Lee is, get past him, maybe get past Kwiatkowski as well, and then he's got to try and chase down the likes of Andy Boardman. Maybe at that point, try and get into the pit lane, get some fresh tyres on before the rest of them do, and see how much time you can gain with the undercut.
Yeah, you've really got to play it kind of smart here, as we see a replay again of this McLaren sandwich going on down in the Melbourne hairpin. Get very close. I don't even think you could fit a piece of paper between those three cars, and that was insanely close from Nicole Fox. Yeah, Nicole Fox at the front with Ethan Scott in the middle, and Alan Knight at the back of that train. It was super close. That could have ended in absolute tears. But yeah, as you say, Ryan, you want to kind of time it right so you pick your fresh tyres, and then you have the maximum, you know, amount of clean air that you can potentially have on them to really make an inroad on your rivals. And then they obviously will come into the pits, and while they're sat in their box waiting to have their tyres changed, you go sailing past on your kind of semi-worn Pirellis. So could be a little bit of a curveball for Daniel Austin to play in the strategy. Obviously 58 minutes still to go. That's 2 minutes short of a normal round we would have here at the British Masters on a Monday. So basically a whole race still to go. The first half an hour has been absolutely action-packed, and we see some penalties coming through for Andy Boardman in the 66, probably for the absolute mess that was down at the turn 10 Melbourne hairpin. I believe it was the 10-10 along the 202 and the 19, no further action from minor contact. And then the one that possibly sealed Andy Boardman was scrolling up and down, struggling to see a number 66. Ryan, if you could help me.
Lap 2, turn 1. So that's the incident involving Jordan Daly. That's where Andy Boardman pushed Jordan Daly off the circuit. We saw that replay earlier on. Is this going to be a replay of it again? Yep, here it is. So this is the incident in question. Andy Boardman on the inside, Jordan Daly on the outside, side by side. Little bump there, and Jordan Daly goes off the track, loses an extra position, maybe 2 positions, I think, as well. So Andy Boardman gets 5 seconds for his troubles, and you know, he'll be frustrated with 5 seconds, but at the same time, it is one of those penalties where it feels like a slap on the wrist. You can overcome it with some pace, but at the moment, George Kwiatkowski right on the back tail of Andy Boardman's McLaren, but he's not going to be too concerned about Kwiatkowski, a bit more concerned about Kingston Lee behind, who is within that 5 seconds at the moment.
Yeah, certainly so. As we see Alan Knight rejoining the circuit along with Roscam on the inside there, so maybe these guys had it coming together, and Nicole Fox has been involved too. Let's see what happened here, Ryan. Down into the old happen, absolutely concertina effect. One of the mid-engine cars maybe a little bit late on the brakes, lost the rear end, kind of tried to hold the brakes as we do recommend here at RCI, and a couple of drivers coming through with a little bit too much pace and just couldn't really take avoiding action, so a couple of cars caught up there.
Fox looked like she struggled to get the car started. I wonder if her car stalled in that accident, because that McLaren did take a while to get going again, but that's going to be an awkward one for the stewards to analyse. I think you don't usually see crashes with that many cars involved half an hour into a race. Usually it's all at the start on lap 1 or 2, where everyone is, you know, so close and bunched up together. It's very unusual to see, was it 5 cars involved in one incident?
Yeah, certainly so. As we see John Racer and Van der Linden into the final turn. Van der Linden maybe getting his elbows out a little bit, misjudging his braking point, and a racer trying to do the old switcheroo up the inside, got blocked by an Aston Martin. But as we come back to the live action,
we
do see John Racer back in front. So Van der Linden going to have to do that one all over again. And let's see what happened on this one from the hairpin. Van der Linden squeezing a racer to the middle of the road to try and get that inside line, and bumping wheels heading down into the last turn. So maybe Van der Linden having to give that position up to maybe avoid the wrath of the stewards. You know, positions returned is always favourable in the stewards' eyes if a position has been gained unfairly. Obviously, gentlemen's kind of racing etiquette, Ryan, is to say, my bad, after you, sir. We shall continue this fight another lap. and onwards you go, and you know, no harm, no foul, as they say, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, not all drivers have that shared gentleman's agreement, though, do they? And that is why you do need live stewarding around. But of course, the stewards do take that into account if a driver does cause an accident, but they slow down, they give up the place, they lose time in response to it. They'll gladly say, okay, well, if you're going to get a penalty, you'll get a much more lenient penalty because, of course, they do take into account that you've owned up for your mistakes. So sometimes we've seen drivers that have, that they've given up 20, 30 seconds to return a position to a driver. And, they've lost like 7, 8, 9, 10 plus positions before. And, that's the moment where you truly do see the true nature of a driver, someone that, has the ability to say, look, that was my bad, I messed up big time, I'll give up a lot of places to try and return this and show that I really did not mean it, and we can just get on with the race.
Yeah, I had a similar incident on Saturday in the Aston Martin GT4 coming into this turn here, where we see Nico Kumpu and Jan Yao take another lap around with Ben Millard lurking on the back. Found myself out braking slightly behind Mr. Kingston Lee in the triple five that we see today in the Aston. Thought he was opening the door, and yeah, he was taking a wide line in the Alpine, which was an alternate line to say the least. And yeah, I tried to take avoiding action, and all of a sudden I had an Alpine across my bonnet, and just had to sit there with the brakes held while everybody went past. So apologies to Matthew Kingston Lee on that one. Hopefully I won't do it again. Very sorry. As we see here, the first round of pit stops coming through. Jordan Daly coming in with Nicole Fox and Stephen Van Kampen, I believe, in the Aston Martin there. Cars up on their jacks. Obviously, the only rule we have here is to take 1 litre of fuel, which you can do anytime. You're not going to get towards the end with that additional 1 litre. So I guess a lot of these guys are going to be running a slightly split strategy, maybe chopping the race in half, or potentially, running to the hour, jumping in. You can make the end on an hour on tyres and the fuel. So again, a very safe window. But again, your tyres aren't going to be at their best at the end. Obviously, if your rival closest to you draws another 20 minutes out of their original set, they're going to have an extra 20 minutes of grip on what you have on your tyres towards the end. So bit of a thing to consider, trying to analyse, what's around you, where you'll come out. Do you come out in, like the silver train where everybody's battling? Do you, come out in some clean air, really get the hammer down, and then by the time you catch the next set of cars, everybody else has decided to pit as well. Tom Shipston here, sat behind Matthew Kingston Lee still, in a bit of a stale zone, but obviously playing it very safe, doesn't really have to take any risks. There's no point, firing up the inside of the Aston and wrecking both your races. So Shipston just keeping a cool head, just, meandering along at Matthew Kingston Lee's pace, as Kwiatkowski out front is trying to hustle the back of Andy Boardman in the pro class. Obviously, these guys not fighting for overall position. However, Kwiatkowski is going to want to probably put another car between himself and Tom Shipston to secure the silver victory at Donington. Although 51 minutes to go, Ryan. Absolutely anything can happen here tonight.
Yeah, anything can happen here tonight. And I've just seen Jordan Daly pop into the chat when he came in to do his pit stop. 25 seconds of damage that Bentley has occurred over the first 40 minutes of the race.
That's one expensive repair bill.
It is, and considering that Bentley don't have that many entries left, probably in short supply as well for those parts, but no, Jordan Daly, don't know whether he got that damage repaired. Looking at his pit stop, pit in to pit out with 1 minute 26, that is much longer than anyone else has got at the moment. The second longest, in fact, is a 1:14 from Alan Knight, so I rather think that Jordan Daly did repair some of that damage and has got his car going again. I'll tell you what, the 1 minute 26 from pit in to pit out, that puts Jordan Daly pretty much a lap down for wherever he was when he came into the pit lane at this stage. Of course, there will still be others to do pit stops, but it has put Jordan Daly firmly on the back foot now, and he's got 50 minutes to try and make up for it.
Yeah, I was going to say 1 minute 26 is near enough a whole lap round here at Donington Park. So he's going to find himself really out of sync obviously just behind Nico Kuizma ahead there, and he of course has Justin van der Linden in the 612 behind him. So going to be an interesting kind of comeback fight for Daly. Going to be seeing, you know, where he ends up after all the pit stops cycle through. Obviously, Nico Kuizma pitted very early indeed, I believe. Just over an hour 10 roughly to go, if I recall correctly. Put himself really out of sync to clear that mandatory stop. So we might even see, you know, Nico Kuizma struggling with those Pirelli tyres towards the latter half of this race. Obviously, the Bentley's going to be on much fresher tyres, so Daly's going to definitely be making an inroad on the back of Kuizma's McLaren. And then it's the cars ahead. We obviously got to watch out for Daly. You know, found himself up in the top 5, so let's see if he can make a comeback to that position. Sorry, put my teeth back in. But it's going to be very hard for Daly. Obviously, 1 minute 26 down. It's a lot of time to lose on your rivals, but it's great to see that, you know, these guys really haven't given up since the start of the race, Ryan. You know, with 90 minutes on the clock, like we said at the start, anything can happen. And I believe we've only lost 2 cars overall. Still 20 cars in the running for this race with 48 minutes to go.
Yeah, 48 minutes and anything can happen. Andy Boardman in the pit lane means he'll serve that 5-second penalty that he's got attached to him. And, well, here is the race leader, which, to be fair, we have not seen since the opening few laps, because he's kind of just been doing this for the last 40, or almost 52 minutes. I mean, absolutely incredible from Ventsi Rakhimov at the moment. Looks like the same kind of display that we saw out at Brands Hatch, just got in front and left the pack behind. And it's this kind of form, isn't it, John Dalton, that makes champions. You get to the clutch part of a season where you need to put in the best results of, well, sometimes of your career to try and get a championship. And for Ventsi Rakhimov, it's just been win after win after win and fantastic performances. He's still got 47.5 minutes to go, but right now he looks bulletproof.
Yeah, it's all, you know, very easy to say that, you know, he is an exceptional driver, is Rakhimov. And obviously with Daniel Austin's penalty at the start, you kind of start playing that scenario in your head of, you know, you wonder, what if Daniel Austin's didn't get that penalty? You know, would Rakhimov be able to stick it to Daniel Austin's, or would Daniel Austin's, you know, walk away like he did at Alton Park? You know, 2 drivers I really wanted to see clash heads here at Donington. Just unfortunately hasn't worked out. But, you know, these guys are still going at it with each other. Ben Mullard and Nico Kumpu barely separated here, as it's kind of allowed Jian Yao to drive away ahead in the 48 Aston. So he's got a little bit of breathing space between himself and Nico Kumpu. You see that gap there ahead? Absolutely massive from Nico. I wonder what happened to him, whether these Pirellis have just dropped off a cliff for him, or, you know, whether he's just really struggling to stay focused for the, you know, the amount of time that this race is. But Nico, no stranger to endurance racing, did compete with him in the RCI Spa 24 Hours in the World Tour. So definitely a driver to be able to put these lap times down consistently time and time again, similar to what Rakhimov has done out front. But Mullard, again, a driver that's going to want to gain every position he can to build that buffer to Nico Kuizma for the championship lead. These guys not separated by much. However, Nico Kuizma is, of course, down in P13 overall, which does find himself slightly out of the points on Ben Mullard. So Ben Mullard can keep this clean and almost do a Tom Shipston and just, you know, kind of follow the back of Nico Kumpu and just have a safe race, just to get a, you know, a haul of points in the bag would be great to finish up on his championship. As we start seeing a couple of the silver drivers coming in now. George Kwiatkowski, I've just noticed, has come in, along with Laurie McLaughlin in the number 7 McLaren. So Tom Shipston provisionally inherits the silver lead, still following Matthew Kingston Lee's almost New York Taxi-like car. I find every time I look at that, it's everything that comes into my head. It's this typical New York Taxi. Why is it burning around Donington Park? And then you go, oh no, wait, it's just Matthew Kingston Lee.
I would be very, very impressed if any New York taxis are sporting an Aston Martin V8 Vantage, but
sure, never say never, Ryan.
I'm sure. I mean, there's Ubers out there that have Bentleys, so anything is possible. And at the moment, though, Matthew Kingston Lee being chased down by Tom Shipston, but obviously not too much in this one. They're in different classes, they're not competing for points. It's mostly just racing pride at this point. And Daniel Austins has come out of the pit lane and has remained in 10th place, so that's actually not too bad for Daniel Austins. Still has some silver drivers to get through, but this car right here, or not this car that we're looking at, but the car right in front of the car we're looking at, is the next target for Daniel Austins to try and get through. And with the 4-1-3, like you said, what could have been today for him, but it's unfortunate when we see a drive-through penalty on the start, especially for one of the title contenders. But yeah, I mean, these guys, they know the score, don't they, John? They've done these starts before. They're plenty experienced, and I mean, I don't know how many starts you've done in a competitive environment, John, but I've never had a drive-through penalty on the start of a race before. And I rather think it's quite easy to not get a drive-through penalty. Some drivers have said otherwise, and I think it can sometimes depend on exactly where you start, but most of the time, unfortunately, when it comes to drive-throughs at the start, it's the driver's responsibility. And on this occasion, I think Daniel Austins at the front on his own had no reason to get it wrong, but did, and has now been handed a 5-second penalty on top of that.
It never rains, but it pours for Daniel Austin at the moment. Looking towards the Stewards decision on the 4-1-3. We had an incident on lap 13, 10, 11 involving the 4-1-3 and the 6-9-9, which was no further action for a minor contact. However, we then had another incident the following lap on lap 14, turn 1, involving the 6-9-9 and the 4-1-3. We have 5 seconds for 4-1-3, which is, of course, Daniel Austins, for the aggressive overtake with contact. The stewards have deemed it. So we call it elbows out racing in the box. Obviously, the stewards have a very different opinion of that down where they are sat. Obviously, many more camera angles and much more data than we do get up here in the pictures in the box. So they're going to be analysing every single angle, pedal input, steering input, and everything that goes along with it. And they've unfortunately found Daniel Austins at fault. So 5 seconds to be added to Daniel Austins' essentially race end at this point, Ryan, because obviously he's made his mandatory pit stop. If you do pick up a penalty before the mandatory pit stop, you then serve it alongside. So where you have typically a 30-second stop in ACC, you have a 5-second penalty. That then becomes a 35-second stop. So, you know, you lose 5 seconds on track time, but obviously you can then gain it back. Whereas, you know, Daniel Austins now with the 5 seconds can't serve it because there's no point in him taking another minute through the pit lane to serve all of 5 seconds, dropping in a litre of fuel. As just seen out the window beneath us, Rachinov has come into the pit lane to make his mandatory stop, but Daniel Austins is going to have to champ that 5 seconds on the end of his race time. So whoever is behind him, he's really going to want to get the hammer down and try and pull out at least a 5-second gap, if not more, to avoid dropping any more positions to his rivals. Jordan Daly here in P13 takes his lap away from Rachinov there, to see on the right hand side of the picture the white McLaren at the back of the train of cars. And speaking of train of cars in the pit lane, Nicole Fox and Stephen Van Kampen have been sat there for quite a while, Ryan. So I believe they are no longer circulating and have unfortunately retired the car for the day. Although obviously, like you say, 40 minutes, anything can happen. They have decided to call it a day with their string of bad luck. Obviously, Nicole Fox, absolutely terrible start, got caught up in a few incidents and then picked up 15 seconds on top of that as well. So probably going to be one to forget for Nicole Fox. Going to want to clear her mind and completely reset for the new championship that is coming up in 2 weeks' time. Keep your eyes peeled on the website for that one. But this man here, Tom Shipston, currently resides in P7, and those eagle-eyed viewers will have noticed that the pit stops have cycled through for the majority of these guys, and Shipston finds himself ahead of Kwiatkowski.
He does, so has managed to get the jump on Kwiatkowski through the pit stops, and that's how it can make a big difference. And Daniel Austins, though, look at this, one of the big gainers here at the moment with the pit stops so far, up into 6th place. There is Nico Kumpu and Matty Kingston Lee to still get their pit stops done. Obviously, I don't think... No, Nico Kumpu won't fall behind Daniel Austins, and Matty Kingston Lee... Well, that might be close when he comes in for a pit stop, so we'll keep an eye on that one. But Austin's, working his way up into 6th position at this point. He's slowly gaining those points back, but now he's got an almighty effort. 20 seconds until he gets to Ben Mullard. And then on top of that, he's got that 5-second penalty. So it's essentially 25 seconds he has to make up on the 77 right now.
Yeah, it's a lot of time to make up on that one, so it'll be interesting to see what Daniel Austins can do against Ben Mullard. Big window, but again, fastest lap of the race does go jointly to Austins and Rachenol, though Austins did set his first, so he would get the honours. So he does have the pace in that Aston Martin to obviously catch these front runners. So fingers crossed, we can get that done, and we can see obviously Austins making an inroads onto the back of Ben Mullard. Jan Yao has become a little bit of a loser in the pit stops, although I believe they are starting to cycle through again with the live timing update, and there we go. Now fires himself back up into P3 ahead of Nico Kumpu and Ben Mullard, although in the pit lane we have Les Stevenson disappearing into the garage there out of the corner of the shot. So unfortunately another retiree we do have, as Shipston does head down into the crane of curves, as we see the car ahead of Daniel Austins quite a way up the road now. So Shipston with plenty of space, plenty of clean air to obviously get the hammer down and stay, really focused on trying to drive away from Kwiatkowski. But Kwiatkowski is a force to be reckoned with. I believe he can technically make that gap up if he does put his mind to it. He's just got to really focus. And this man here, Jordan Daly, again on another comeback drive, finding himself a little bit closer to the back of the number 12 of Nico Kuizma ahead there, who finds himself very close to the back of John O'Racer. So we see 3 pro cars here together, all fighting for honours. So fingers crossed these guys can, really get it done and really stick to each other. It's great to see what these pro guys can do. But a few silver guys here, I believe, Ryan, I think we could potentially push up into pro. A few certain names, Tom Shipson, for example, and Kwiatkowski have really proven that they can, stick it to the big boys. So there's no reason why they can't be, ahead of everyone in the same class.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some drivers, I think, being bumped up to pro for next season, that's for sure. Jordan Daly, though, closing in on Nico Kuizma, a driver that hasn't really had a race to remember for him. Started on the front row of the grid, but it's all rather gone south from that point. Has recovered up to 12th, but it's not really had the race that they wanted, although at the moment, Jordan Daly, he's on his recovery drive after repairing 25 seconds of damage in the race Ventura Bentley, so we'll have to see. And all these guys at the moment competing for 11th place overall right now, and it's basically to say which one is going to be the king of outside the top 10, should we say. I mean, they often say that the second is the first of the losers. Well, these guys are basically just competing to see which is going to be the winner of outside the top 10.
Yeah, certainly so. Top 10 is, the middle ground we like to say is, if you're in the top 10, you're a fairly competent driver, especially in the, the mixed field of pros and silvers. We see, 3 silvers in the top 10, quite frankly, Ryan, and they have stuck to the pro guys. We see a couple of pro guys in this train here with John O'Racer heading it just outside the top 10, and obviously a massive gap up the road. We can't even see Lauren McLaughlin's number 7 McLaren ahead of John O'Racer. So a few guys I reckon we could push up, and it'd be great to see them, fighting with each other for championship honours, rather than, just fighting with each other for the sake of fighting with each other. That's a frustrating thing. But George Kwiatkowski here chases the back of Tom Shipston, putting in some good lap times here. 127.8, I believe, last time by. His best is 127.8, I think I just saw. So George Kwiatkowski setting some great pace on his best lap of the race so far. Still 35 minutes to go. So still plenty of time to see what can happen indeed. As Matthew Kingston Lee is at the moment our provisional leader, just due to the fact that he hasn't pitted, obviously in the first 55 minutes or so. So the tank on that Aston is probably going to be coming to the end soon. So we're going to see Kingston Lee coming in maybe in the next 5-10 minutes or so. Still 33 minutes of the pit window open. Of course, in ACC you can choose to set a pit window, so all you have to do is come into the pit lane, fill the mandatory requirements, in this case 1 litre of fuel, and in that time window to avoid any time penalties. have seen in a few championships in the past, people getting too involved in the battles and kind of forgetting the pit window is a thing. So definitely not something you want to do. And Kingston Lee is very experienced, so I'd like to see that he isn't going to be the man that does that. Although with 34 minutes to go, he is going to find himself probably one of the fastest cars on the grid, Ryan, if I do say so. He's going to be on those fresh Pirellis. He's going to have just enough fuel to, you know, get to the end of the race. So Kingston Lee, I would say, is looking like he could make up a few positions maybe.
Yeah, Kingston Lee might gain a few positions as well. It all depends on if he does decide to go for that tyre strategy. I mean, it would seem like the most obvious choice, wouldn't it, to take the tyres? But we have seen drivers before try and go a full 90 minutes. So, you know, we could see with Matthew Kingston Lee try something a bit different if he wants to save those 5 seconds. But I think the safe play for him will be to get that pit stop done and those tyres changed. But he's going to keep going, though, and doesn't look like he's going to make a pit stop in the first hour that we have here of racing. So it looks like he's going to try and maximise this stint as much as he can. Of course, there is no fixed, like you said, there's no fixed time on when he has to come in, except for it has to be within the pit window. So as long as his fuel tank can keep going and his car can keep circulating, he will keep going. And Jan Yeo at the moment in 3rd place, but technically 2nd place once Kingston Lee comes into the pit lane. Still doing a fantastic job, but having caught up a bit to Rakhidov now. It's only 3.1 seconds between the two of them.
Yeah, certainly so. Rashinov maybe finding a little bit of a struggle in this latter half of the race. Maybe, you know, focus is kind of draining a little bit, you know, kind of finding it, you know, typical race is an hour here, Ryan. So an extra half an hour on these guys. They are coming up now to where they would be in their final, you know, couple of minutes. Looking forward to jumping out of the rig, you know, having a drink, having maybe something to eat, having a shower, and just getting ready to chill after a race. They've still got another half an hour to go, so it's going to be a long one tonight. We're going to finish nearly just before 10 o'clock in UK time. So these guys may be feeling a little bit fatigued now, maybe finding themselves a little bit under pressure, getting a bit, you know, unfocused, forgetting where they're braking, forgetting their, you know, forgetting their apexes, forgetting their exits, you know, maybe running a little bit wide, possibly, I want to say, but maybe they got a couple of track limit warnings and they're on their last one. I know when I picked up 3, I underdrove the car massively everywhere just to avoid getting another one. So this could be the case for some of the guys in the field. With an hour gone, you're going to be pushing quite half of the hour. It's going to be very easy to pick up 3 track limit warnings here.
Yeah, it could very well be that positions like this are decided through track limit warnings, and when you're pushing each other so hard, it's easy to pick up those warnings, just like mistakes that happen as well. And is that Kuzma just having made a little bit of a mistake? It invites Jordan Daly in to have a little bit of a chance here. He's going to have a look. He's on the outside line of the chicane, and he's not quite going to make it cut. Oh, straight back in, and that might have been a track cut for Jordan Daly, but didn't get the place done. A little flash of the lights for Nico Kuzma as well. Just on top, Jordan Daly clearly not happy with that, but on the outside line going into the chicane, though, I think it was always going to be Nico Kuzma's line.
Yeah, that's it. Nico Kuzma not backing out of that one, fully committed in the 720S2. Very good names in sim racing, Daly and Kuzma sticking it to each other, and now Kuzma has got past. He's just absolutely gapped Daly through the next sequence of corners. So it's going to be a tricky one for Daly to catch up on. Daly's going to be, you know, a bit riled up in that car. He's going to be a bit hot and heavy, trying to, you know, think maybe he's been done wrong by, and, you know, all the rest of it. But it's one of them things with Daly. You've just got to, you know, grin and bear it. And Alan Knight here picking up a drive-through for something, stopping on the pit entrance and finding himself retiring the car, possibly race over. Sorry for Alan Knight there, which isn't obviously great, but Alan was having a great run up until that point, so unfortunate for him. Possibly didn't want to take the drive-through, thought he'd lose too much, and obviously would put him way out of contention for even a decent finish, as we see a couple of yellow flags being chucked down at the S's, I believe, just where we find ourselves now. Not sure who that was, couldn't really make it out on the track map, unfortunately. as Daly proceeds to chase down the back of Nico Kuzma. Looks like he's made a very good inroad through sector 2 and 3 on Kuzma. Maybe the Bentley just isn't the best through, the final sector. Maybe it really shines in, 1 and 2, and the McLaren shines in 3, as we see Andy Boardman in the pit lane here in the 66. Nicole Fox still obviously stationary.
Yeah, this is Andy Boardman back in the pit lane because he'd already made his mandatory stop, so is there damage on the 66 car? We'll find out now. Broadcaster Ted has perhaps found a replay of some sort here, and Andy Boardman. Yeah, that's not ideal.
That would have been the yellow I probably spotted down at the S's, so commiserations to Boardman there. Looked like maybe a hardware disconnect. Steering just kind of straightened up and into the wall he went with not a lot of control, unfortunately.
That could be hardware failure, actually. I have seen similar incidents like that before where we've seen hardware failure or hardware disconnecting is another one that it could be, so we'll have to see. But yeah, unfortunate for Andy Boardman back into the pit lane, and his night looks like it is done. So Matthew Kingston Lee has come into the pit lane, by the way, whilst all of that was going on. So he's decided to come into the pits and get his mandatory stop done.
Daly facing the wrong way there, Ryan, out of the S's, I believe. Very odd place to be. Let's have a look what happened. Nico Kuzma made the move, and Kuzma just kind of booped the back of him. But Kuzma parked himself in the gravel nicely. Said, "On you go, Daly." This gentleman's agreement we were talking about earlier. Nico Kuzma being very respectful to Daly, as we seem to have a little bit of a technical issue here, Ryan.
Yes, so over the past, it's been about 15 minutes, I think, hasn't it? Over the past 15 minutes, we have, unfortunately, been suffering from some issues on the server. If anyone is familiar with the attacks that have been going around, then shouldn't really need me to tell you what 1 and 1 put together means. So unfortunately, it would seem that we are going to have to red flag this race, and what that is going to mean is that we will have to call the race early. So the results are likely going to be as they are at the time of the red flag here, and that's going to mean that Rakhimov is going to walk away with the win, Yanyeo second place, and Mullard in third. Kumpi's fourth, Austin's fifth with that 5-second penalty. Won't damage his position in the pro standings. Shipston will take the win in silver. But as it stands, the race is going to have to be red flagged, and that is going to be the end of proceedings tonight. And unfortunately, John, 27 minutes too early.
Yeah, very unfortunate for that one, but it is what it is. As Ryan says, I'm sure you don't need us to explain what just went on, but here we have a race replay, at least to remind you of the opening action and a little highlights reel that we have going on here with Daniel Austin's unfortunately picking up a drive-through penalty on the start line. See, a little bit too far forward. All he had to do, Ryan, was keep it in that green zone, and obviously maybe pressure got to him, got a little bit too lax, maybe looked in his mirror rather than looking at the overlay, and just found himself that inch forward too far and slapped the drive-through penalty, which did unfortunately shuffle him down to the back of the grid. And despite what I said in qualifying, it was a clean start, Ryan.
It was a clean start, and yeah, I mean, it was a much cleaner lap one than I think you and I expected, and that was great to see. Of course, there was plenty of elbows out, there was plenty of archie-barchie between drivers, but when we looked through the incident report, I mean, you and I had a good look at it. There was mostly just NFAs, racing incidents, a couple of warnings, and a couple of penalties thrown in there, but nothing significant, and that was what was great to see. There was plenty of wheel-to-wheel racing, plenty of drivers just doing driver things and not really getting too involved with each other to the point where the stewards had to intervene.
Yeah, so great to see, fair kind of elbows out racing where everybody's kind of giving as good as they're getting, and maybe that's the stance the stewards kind of looked at and thought, well, X car has had his elbows out against X car, so fair cop, you both did it, you both came off the same, and nobody's lost out, so crack on and provide some great entertaining racing as we see Jordan Daly here, following Kingston Lee's yellow taxi before we flick to the pass on Justin van der Linden with Ross Cam. I believe it's more Ethan Scott and Ross Cam up in the highlight reel suggests in the top right. Ross Cam there taking the place through the final corner. And Ross Cam, a driver that, you know, had a really good run today. Definitely showed some real good pace in silver. So, you know, if he does work on it a little bit more, maybe he could find himself next season promoted into the pros.
Definitely could. And, yeah, it's going to be a good season, I think, for the likes of Tom Shipston if he does move up into the pro class, which he should do, I think. And it's definitely going to be exciting to see new drivers up in the pro class, and that's always what we love about these championships, isn't it? We get to see drivers, you know, progress from some of the, you know, lower classes and get up into the higher classes, and then we get to obviously see them perform at the highest level. But we might have had a race cut short here this evening, but we are going to get the satisfaction of talking to the man that has dominated the race, and well, dominated the last two races, should I say. Vincey Rakinov, thank you very much for joining us here in the commentary box. I mean, it's a shame that the race has had to be called early, but you were doing such an amazing job out there today. And no matter what the server issues happened, obviously there were things that happened at the start for your title rival, but you have more than deserved this championship here tonight.
Thank you very much. And first, it's so unfortunately to lose the race, to disconnect in this bad way, but I hope soon these DDoS attacks will stop. Then I think I made the maximum that I was able to do. I think it was enough today, so unfortunately for my rivals, but at least something for me. So
yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic performance from you today. I mean, similar to the performance you had at Brands Hatch, you did everything you needed to do today, and well, definitely worthy of walking away with the championship. And of course, congratulations to you. Obviously, a driver that you're not a driver that we're very familiar with around here at RCI, so it's always great to just, you know, to see new people up towards the top of the championships and competing. And of course, we do have a new roster of championships coming up soon. So is there any plans from yourself to carry on the form that you've got into maybe the next Monday championship?
of course, I will try to make it. It was a very nice championship. I think we made it interesting to the last race, which is good. Unfortunately for me, I had a very bad start in the first race, where I make a stupid mistake with the fuel. So, but at least we made some nice fights to the end. I think it was more than nice and entertaining. It was perfect for me. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for putting on a great show out here for all the people at home watching as well. Of course, everyone will be disappointed that we've had to call early, but you are the champion of the British Masters, and deservedly so as well. So for everyone at home, big round of applause for Vincey Rakinov, the British Masters Pro Class champion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon on next championships.
Definitely, we look forward to seeing you there. So that was Vincey Rakinov of the Pro Class, and your Pro Champion for the British Masters. And absolutely great to talk to him. And now we get a bit of an opportunity to also speak to our Silver Champion for this season. Tom Shipston, congratulations on the silver title. It was already yours in the bag the moment Ethan Scott didn't grab pole position. But that didn't stop you from, you know, putting that Bentley through its paces and trying to find the most you could out of this race tonight.
Well, for sure, it's Donington's very weakest track. Got to go in the end. I found it sort of, but I still wanted that win in the end.
Yeah, of course, and obviously it's a shame to see the race called short, and you know, you had a great job, you know, working your way up through some of the pro drivers, and of course up into the lead of silver. You definitely showed tonight that, you know, even despite the race being called short, you were champion before the race even got underway. So I don't think anyone could could falter your credentials for champion. But for you now, I mean, we were talking about it just a moment ago, John Dalton specifically mentioning it. I mean, you've had some incredible pace this season, been mixing it up with the pros. I mean, surely for you going into, you know, maybe your next RCI championship, the goal for you now has to be to compete in pro.
I hope so. I'm aiming to be back for the Porsche Cups next season, but they're literally my worst car in the entire game, and I can't keep them in a straight line.
You're
so
not the
we'll
only one.
see.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll see. If I get into pro, then it'll be pretty amazing.
Awesome. Well, you know, it has been, you know, great to watch, and of course, you know, you really have, you know, put your foot down and said that this championship is mine in silver class, and of course, we did see a battle pretty much down to the wire in terms of points in pro, and obviously going into the race tonight, or going into qualifying rather tonight, it was still possible for you, but you know, you tried your best to try and get your car up to, you know, the front end of the grid, and you know, you kept it nice and clean throughout the start of the race as well. You kept your car out of trouble, which was the main thing, and of course that's been the thing for you this season, surely, hasn't it? The consistency of results and the consistency of the pace you've had all season long has really showed the you know, with the points tally you've brought home.
Yeah, I think the main aim for me is the consistency rather than overall pace. I was keeping an eye on the pro battle because me and Daniel Austins know each other from another server, so I was rooting for him, and as soon as I saw him get that triumph in the first lap, I was bumped for him.
Yeah, I think all of us can echo those thoughts. But no, I mean, congratulations to you though, winner of the silver class for the British Masters here, and of course we'll be walking away aiming for pro next season in the Porsche Cup USA. So again, everyone at home, big round of applause for the likes of Tom Shipston, who walks away as your silver class champion of the British Masters. Well, John, it was interesting to hear from both of our champions in the classes. We don't usually get to speak to them post-season. Typically, that's something we do on the Friday nights, but I suppose with the extra time that we've had here, we've had the opportunity to have a little bit of a chat with them, and of course, you know, it does lead rather well into next season, doesn't it? Kind of spoiled it if anyone wasn't already aware that Porsche Cup USA is, of course, the next championship that we have out here. Of course, the release of the new GT World Challenge America pack. From what we know, there's 3 new circuits coming, which are, of course, Watkins Glen, Indianapolis, and Circuit of the Americas. And the new championship, the Porsche Cup USA, will be heading out to all 3 of those circuits. Pre-qualifying starts on the release day for the DLC at Watkins Glen. And the first round of the championship is also at Watkins Glen on 11th of July. So get yourself registered for that. Get your pre-qualifying done as soon as the tracks come out, and of course get yourself involved here at RaceRCI.com. And that's the Porsche Cup USA, the name of the championship. We'll also be visiting the likes of Imola, the Nürburgring, and Laguna Seca in that championship as well. So a couple of European circuits in the mix as well. But as John said before, we do have some other racing. The Wednesday Championship, which unfortunately won't be live streamed, but will be getting started this Wednesday. Very excited. It's the first time I'm going to be back in a competitive championship again for a very long time, and looking forward to that. Of course, pre-qualifying still open. You can still register for that, so get yourself signed up if you've got some free time and a teammate on a Wednesday night. Then Thursday Championship as well heads for its 4th round of the season. They're going to be at Silverstone, as John mentioned previously. Friday nights are over, but pre-qualifying is open for the next championship, and I believe that next championship is going to be at all the American circuits. So it's COTA, Watkins, Laguna, and Indianapolis. So it's a 4-round sprint championship, and pre-qualifying is already open at Kyalami. So you can get yourself registered for that as well. And Night Owl concludes this weekend after the World Tour qualifying for the final round of World Tour. So the World Tour qualifying happening in the evening, and then in the late evening, we have the Misano race for Night Owl. That one's starting at, I believe, 11 o'clock, and that is also a 90-minute finale, as Night Owl is used to. So plenty of action. That will be live streamed as well on RCI TV. So plenty for you to look forward to over the rest of the week. Big thank you to our partners, of course, Race Department, who we will unfortunately be saying goodbye to after this stream as a partner. They have helped us immensely from day one to get RCI up and running, but we will be saying goodbye to them as partners, and the same goes for Sim Racing GP as well. But of course, if you do want to check out Race Department, of course, they have all the mods for some of the best content in AC1 race, not Race Room, R Factor 2. They do have some Race Room stuff as well, and they have loads of information and news about the world of motorsport and sim racing. And of course, Sim Racing GP, if you're looking for a community in the likes of Race Room, R Factor, AC1, you can check out the Sim Racing GP platform today and find a community to get started with. You can also check out AK Informatica. They're an Italian distributor of PC hardware, and all of our events are run on their hardware. So, of course, we do thank AK Informatica for helping RCI on that. And Driver 61, if you want to win like Rakinov did today and dominate, you can get some driver coaching from Driver 61, and it costs as little as $10 to get access to the Sim Racing Academy. You can also get 25% off with our discount code in the description below. And Fanatec, plenty of high-end equipment for sim racing, and now on a budget as well with the CSL-DD. Use our Fanatec affiliate link in the description below to support RCI at no extra cost. Well, John, it has been an exciting season. It was not quite the finale that, we were all hoping for, and we had to cut it short, and, that we didn't quite have the battle between the title contenders that we were looking for. But it's been a great season nonetheless, and I don't know about you, but I might not be in the commentary box, but I'm looking forward to the next season already.
Yeah, certainly so. It's been a fantastic season. We've seen some absolutely wonderful driving up and down the grid. We've seen some very close fights between cars. You couldn't even fit a piece of paper between. We've also seen some not so great driving, but obviously we are only human, and hopefully we all learn from our mistakes. But I am very, very much looking forward to the next championship on a Monday. Fingers crossed. I want to keep Monday as a regular slot for commentary, so hopefully I'll be back. Maybe not with you by my side, Brian, but it has been wonderful casting 2 seasons with you, and you giving my introduction to the world of commentary. So I'm very glad I've been partnered with you for a while, and it's going to be sad not to see you at these events anymore.
Yeah, it's. I think it's about time I moved on though. 2.5 years, pretty much, doing this now. Commentary on for communities. It has been a lot, and with the new job I've started alongside AK Esports, doing stuff with SRO and Ferrari as well, it has just been a bit too much for me to do loads of stuff on the community level. I will still be around the place though. I'm still going to be on the Zolder broadcast for the finale of the World Tour, and I'm pretty sure I'll pop my head in for some endurance race broadcasts and maybe some emergency fill-ins as well if I'm available for any championships. But no, it has been an absolute pleasure over the last 2.5 years to bring races to you guys at home from a commentary perspective. It's something that I had zero experience in when I came into it 2.5 years ago, but the reception from the community to my commentary has been absolutely incredible to see. And I've had the opportunity to coach a few more people into commentary as well and break them in, and it has been great to meet all the people that I have met across sim racing and RCI, RLM even, where it all started as well. So it'll be sad to say goodbye to the commentary side of RCI, but I'll still be around here. I'll still be a face and a name in the community that everyone will see, and hopefully maybe you'll see me on a grid on a broadcast sometime soon. Until then, Enjoy the rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you next time on RCI TV.